And welcome back to the Cover 3 podcast here on CBS Sports. That's Bud Elliott. That's Danny Cannell. That's Tom Fornelli. I'm Chip Patterson. Thanks to all of you that have been checking in. This is a very busy week. This is a very busy month. And if you have not subscribed to the Cover 3 podcast on YouTube, youtube.com/Cover3, subscribe there, smash that bell, and you will get a notification anytime we go live. The next time we will be live, 11 a.m. on Thursday, to get you set with those week 12 locks. Also, in this episode, we are going to be tackling the mailbag, opening up the big old bag of mail. And if you want to add a question to that mailbag and get it on a future Wednesday episode, the best way to do that is leave us a 5-star review and put that mailbag question within the review. So we'll be talking a little bit about the coaching candidates, ACC perception nationally, comparing what Georgia and where we think Georgia might be going. But I thought it would be good with 2 regular season weeks left to play to open up with a little bit of a spotlight on some of our preseason win totals locks. So we're going to start with some Latifah that is on the line. And Latifah on the line, they got some some good news for us and some bad news for the team. Because Tom, Chip, Bud are all on the under 7.5 for Auburn. Auburn currently sitting at 6-4, but we find out that it will be TJ Finley, not Bo Nix, the rest of the way. Bo Nix has gone down with a season-ending injury. Bud, I think it was on the air, but if not, I mean, honestly, it's all blending together, like how much we're talking about football right now. But I remember that you said you did not make much or any adjustment in terms of your power rating for Auburn with the change at quarterback with Finley coming in for Nix. And so, as you are also invested in this win total, I want to let you start here. How are you feeling about our chances to bring home Auburn under 7.5?
I'm feeling really, really good. Not because of the Nix injury. I really just felt great about it once Mississippi State beat them. I mean, that was sort of one of the swing games. In order for this under to hit, I either needed COVID to happen, because remember, Auburn was one of the teams that was struggling to get to that threshold in the preseason. Or I needed them to drop one of the games against Mississippi schools, and they did. Mississippi State beat them. So they have Bama left, and they have the game at South Carolina. I mean, what do you think a parlay is of them going 2-0 in that game?
Like, what is the payout for?
What are the odds that they actually win out? 25-1? No, excuse me, it's not that. Never mind.
I mean,
10-1.
They're only a touchdown favorite this weekend.
Right. Yeah. So it's actually probably less than 10-1. I had the math backwards in my head.
I have it about 6-1-ish.
So yeah, that's kind of about how I feel.
What about Tom?
Yeah, no, I feel pretty comfortable.
You think they finish 7-5, beat South Carolina, lose to Alabama, and then we cash this thing by about a half a win? Because there was a time, look, before the Mississippi State comeback, and with Alabama coming off the struggle against LSU, the interest in that Iron Bowl, which is going to be in Jordan-Hare Stadium, a place that Alabama has had struggles, we thought, hey, maybe that's going to be it. And then for me, if Auburn's going to pull off an unbelievable Iron Bowl type upset, it's got to be with Bo Nix, right? I mean, that's just the storybook. I mean, he's going to be the one who's going to figure it out. You lose Bo Nix, I feel like that one that's a loss, and that gets us home. I probably think Auburn beat South Carolina, but for me, the Nix injury changes how I feel about the Iron Bowl and the chances of the Tigers being able to win that game.
It would be kind of Auburn for them to lose at South Carolina and then beat Bama in Jordan-Hare.
Very Auburn.
Yes.
That's the most Auburn outcome possible, yes.
I'll tell you what, if TJ Finley, I'm kind of with Bud here. We know Bo Nix has been this roller coaster ride. Without having seen much of TJ Finley, I think he does have more raw potential, bigger arm. Does he have a grasp of the system? If he looks good against South Carolina and they go in there and they win by, 20, let's say their offense starts getting going, I think it'll make the Iron Bowl that much more interesting. But I need to see that South Carolina game to really give a good feel about TJ Finley. I mean, I did play a lot against Georgia. Was it Georgia State that they almost lost to?
Mm-hmm.
So he played okay in that game. I think he's definitely serviceable. I mean, he's a guy who's played a lot of football.
Pass.
Yeah.
Remember the complete pass?
Yes. So, like, I don't know. I think this game could be interesting in kind of getting his kind of legs underneath him. It could be a huge confidence booster for him, or it could curb that line even more where Alabama could be a significant favorite if TJ Finley struggles in this offense and they don't look good against South Carolina. Then I think we'll have our answer.
I mean,
He also beat South Carolina last year playing for LSU.
I will say too, like they're going to be on the road. It's his first start this year at Auburn. And South Carolina, while it's a team with a lot of faults, pass defense, it's actually been pretty decent. So that could be an interesting matchup.
This next one is probably more of a push watch here. Like Bud's pretty much got Arizona State. At least he's not going to lose this. Arizona State is not going to be winning 10 games in the regular season. The Sun Devils are 7-3. But I got to tell you, I thought the under 9 was looking way better when it sounded like Herm was kind of throwing his players under the bus. It looked like all of the instability that we talked about going into the season might be coming up to the top after 2 straight losses, both to Utah and Washington State. However, 15-point win at home against USC. You go up against that Washington team, and Washington, in a little bit of turmoil as well. But after back-to-back wins against USC and Washington, Arizona State now could push its win total at 9. However, you got to go to Corvallis to play Oregon State, and then I'm going to give them a win against Arizona in the Territorial Cup at the end of the season. I know it's a bold pick, but do you think Arizona State ends up getting to push here at 9?
I think they're going to go under. I think they'll lose one of the last 2. Yeah, and I think that we will see a coaching change there. By the way.
I think they could, I'm not dismissing that Arizona game at all. This is I wrote about it this week at the bottom 25. Arizona is a bad team. They are 1-9. But the one thing that stands out when you watch them that this late in the season, when they're down to I think their 9th string quarterback at this point, and there's really nothing to play for, they're playing hard, man. They're trying. And you see a lot of teams this time of year, once the season's, everything's gotten away from them, they kind of let their foot off the gas and just want to get the year done. This is a team that's playing hard. So I have a feeling that come that rivalry game, that's going to be a more interesting game than I think. I'll probably end up taking Arizona against the spread, whatever it is.
What do you think about Danny? Have you got a feel for Arizona State right now?
I would lean towards you guys saying Arizona State will blow them away, but I could not have been more wrong about Arizona against Utah last week. So Tom brings up a pretty good point. And it depends on that number too. Rivalry game, the fact they gave up was 70 last year. Someone almost gets fired. Those players will remember that. So they'll have some fight in them too. So I think it would be one of those throw out the records type of bets. You're going to get a best effort, and they are out there clawing away.
Yeah, see, that's comparing this Arizona team and the way it looked against Utah, the way it looked against USC in these games, compared to how Arizona looked at the end of last season when it was, everybody knew it was a sinking ship. There's clearly belief in this staff on those sidelines in that locker room. So, again, I'm taking them against the spread. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm taking them.
I just slipped in a Herm Edwards is gone, right? Isn't that what you just slipped in there?
I think that's very much in play.
You want to back that up, or is that is that based on the midseason hiccups, the NCAA investigation, general tea leaves, anything you're hearing? How do you get there?
I took a look at their recruiting, right, and it's not going great, understandably, because you've had some changes in methodology there, right? Washington is also opening. If you think about it, Washington is probably the same level of job as Arizona State, or on a similar tier, I would think, right? I don't
listen, careful. I got yelled at for trying to dog Arizona State's academics, and they were in the chat just roasting me about how Arizona State's on the up on these academics. Thankfully, we're not live right now because I said that Washington and Arizona State were the same tier football side. Washington just had better academics. And shout out, the few Arizona State natives that I know are all very, very smart. So I guess I should pack that take back away in the backpack of basics.
Did Robbie go Arizona State?
Robbie
Calland?
No, he went to Georgia State.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
The Harvard of Atlanta.
Yes.
I don't. Right. But if Herm,
they have 5 commits.
But isn't this one where the record would mask that for another year? Like they're 7-3, even if they split and they're 8-4, that's improvement. And if they go 9-3, it'd be really hard to justify. So I think it might come down to these last couple games.
I think that's true depending on how they close on signing day. I started taking a look at some of these recruiting classes to look for like leading indicators for some of these jobs that may or may not open. And that one popped me. I was like, oh, because like Fuente's recruiting class this year actually wasn't that bad. It was just the prior 5 years where they didn't really, do their jobs. This Arizona State class is bad. I mean, they're 92nd. They have 5 kids committed. One of them's a kicker.
Yeah, but is Ray Anderson going to fire Herm just because
Well,
his recruiting class is bad?
That's the question. I mean, does
If an 8-4, 9-3 too, that's why.
Yeah.
does Ray Anderson get to stay, or do you clean the whole house? I don't know. I'm not marking this one as safe on my bingo card, guys.
Can I grab the wheel real quick for something off the table?
Please.
Blake James, the athletic director at Miami, gets fired. Does that mean, like, what does that mean for your expectations for Manny Diaz and his future?
Well, our David Lake of Inside the U reported that Blake and Mario at Oregon really don't get along at all. So the Miami folks are taking this as a signal that, hey, Miami wants to make a run at Mario, and getting Blake out of there was one of the first dominoes that has to fall.
Interesting.
You're really trying to thread a needle with the timing.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
now
what
you've
if they
got
make the playoff? Also, Cristobal's buyout drops after this year. Everybody's
Honestly,
like, hey, how are you going to get Cristobal in this year? What if they let Manny coach one more year?
that's
Cristobal's buyout drops. You get a new AD, and he's had a chance to survey the landscape. He's had a chance to fundraise. Then they go make a more serious run at Mario next year.
Yeah, see, that was my initial reaction was, well, if they're firing the AD now, Manny's probably going to get another year because now they've got to find a new athletic director, and whoever it is, I don't know if they're going to want to come in like December and then fire the coach right away and then start a coaching search when signing day is already happening, all that stuff. Usually you see a new athletic director come in and be like, well, I want to give them a year just to, get to know them before I make a decision, so a lot of times they've already got their minds made up what that decision will be. But yeah, I think Manny's going to get another year at least.
I will say, if you're a Miami fan and you're not looking at Inside the U, those guys have been all over this stuff for weeks, and like they're dropping legitimate insider notes. They're pretty well connected over there. It's well worth your price subscription.
I would also say, if you're a Miami fan, maybe give up on the Cristobal dream, because I understand he's
Before
a Miami
they make a run
guy.
at him?
No, I'm just saying I understand he's a Miami guy, but don't get your hopes up because there is a huge difference between Oregon and Miami right now. I know Miami has the past and all that stuff, but I think right now and in the future, Oregon much better positioned.
I don't disagree. I will say the only reason I'm entertaining this is that people who are really smart people who are not diehard Miami fans have told me privately, like, they really think it could happen. And I was like, are you serious? Like, what?
Then it's going to be nothing but love for his alma mater, because if you think about it right now, with Mario's recruiting and what he's trying to do at Oregon, he's got unlimited resources at Oregon. Anything he wants, he'll be able to get as long as he's winning games. At Miami, we've seen it. It's not, there's not an unlimited supply of money for Miami at that school. And it's why they've kind of fallen behind, I think, in recent years.
This is one of those aspects too, where I think we speculate, and unless you know somebody, like, hey, maybe he wants to come back home. Maybe he's got family that he wants to play in front of.
His brother's a police officer down there.
But aside from that, I think Tom, like, if you separate all that, I think it's a pipe dream for Miami. But we've seen the ties that people have. He won a national championship there. Like, maybe he wants to bring that back to the U. Maybe he would play for less. Maybe he would take on that risk just to bring that program back. So I don't know. Without knowing him personally and being on the inside and knowing what he values, I don't know. I think I would temper your expectations like Tom.
So I looked at it probably more from the analysis than the insider opinion, where I thought that Miami entering the coaching search without an athletic director is a horrible leverage position. You are not going to be attractive when you already have shown that you are behind the curve in the arms race of investment, when you are behind what the top programs are able to do. And you're going to say, all right, well, we're going to hire you, and then we're going to bring in someone else who didn't get the chance to hire you. Like, I think that would be a bad decision for Miami to fire Manny Diaz without an athletic director hired and enter into this coaching search, unless, as is being hinted at here, it is a fully like homegrown family type hire. Because if you throw all emotion, which is impossible, but if you throw that to the side, I think it's a bad leverage position where you're going to have to either way overpay, or you're just going to miss out and have to settle for somebody and watch your top candidates say no and or go elsewhere.
FaceTime exists.
I think half the battle in college football is finding a quarterback. I think they've got one in Tyler Van Dyke. He looks like he's thriving in Rhett Lashley's system. Like, the defense is supposed to be Manny's thing. So if you trust him, like, hey, let's figure that side of the ball out. Let's give him one more year. They've been competitive in almost every game. Yes, they've almost lost some games they should have been more comfortably in hand. But like, I know the record is bottom line business. That's what we look at. Like, I don't think it's that bad where you just say, yeah, we got to make the fire now. You know, like, I think Florida State's been a completely different team than when they started 0-4. You know, I just think, like, do you really want to start over and without a Mario Cristobal, or without a guarantee of a name that's going to be an automatic upgrade? I think they'll just become what they've been the last 15 years, which is a coaching turnover machine.
One last win total check-in. The Boston College Eagles are currently 6-4 on the season. The remaining 2 games are at home against Florida State and at home against Wake Forest. Now, the number here is 7.5. I will say that, you know, feeling okay that Boston College ain't going to run off both of these, but this is a Boston College team that now, with Phil Dracovic back in the lineup, is, you know, as good as it has been since the beginning of the season. Back-to-back wins against Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech to get this thing going in the right direction. Again, probably not getting to 8, but I at least wanted to see where the temperature was of the Eagles, especially with Florida State coming up on the schedule in Chestnut Hill this weekend.
I think it's certainly possible. I mean, they'll be favored against FSU slightly, or they are right now. Will they be a favorite over Wake? I don't think so, but not by much. Or like maybe what, 3-point dog?
Like a field goal-ish.
Yeah. It's hard to bet against Dracovic, man. That guy's a good player. And with him back, they've looked really good. Last week, he went for 308 on 19 throws. So that's pretty efficient, you know, if you're into, like, you know, that kind of yards per attempt. But still, like, having to hit both those, that is tough. I think the under is it's a lucky win if I get there, because clearly, like, if Dracovic could stay, they're not going to lose all those games they did. I don't think. But him getting hurt really swung this thing. And it's a lesson. If you're betting on a team that is super reliant on one really, really good player, you kind of got to, like, to steal a phrase from Rufus here, like, model that dynamic uncertainty of quarterback injury to, you know, like, say, hey, like, is this really that much of a lock? If the QB goes down, am I screwed?
Yeah, I'd say it's about 4-1 that they went out.
I tell you what, if you're a BC fan, I think you kind of want to hope they split, so you still go bowling. But if they win out, I'm telling Jeff Hafley is a name that I would be calling. I mean, he's done a fantastic job there. Like, I think you kind of want to fly under the radar, and I don't know if he's under the radar because of what he's done, but I don't know if he's going to be there for the long term. So you're kind of like, man, it'd be nice to get one more year.
If Penn State loses Franklin, that's who I'm calling.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. I talked, a guy on Twitter asked me about it yesterday. He's like, he said, do you think Hafley's a good candidate for Washington? And I said, I think Hafley's a good candidate for every single opening out there.
Yeah. Like, the players love him. He and his staff do a really good job, like, finding talent early. And of course, they don't always sign it. I mean, they've had guys committed who it's like, oh, by the way, Georgia now likes you, and the kid's from Georgia. So, but that's a good leading indicator to me. I want to see that you're finding these guys early and taking risks on them and throwing out those offers and not waiting for everybody else to offer.
Plus value coach, in my opinion, on the organizational front, plus value coach on the relationship front. And when we think about the future of football, he comes from that defensive back pass defense mindset. I guess that is a lot of things going in your favor. Danny,
the only thing
Let's
Chip.
let's be good, but like don't be too good. Like
Right.
maybe get one of these wins, but let's not get to 8-4. Let's not sneak into the AP top 25. Let's just keep this nice and below the radar.
You don't
Did I
want
tell you guys?
He's only 7-5. You don't want him.
Right? Exactly. That's what you want to do.
You can't sell that to the fan base.
Right? Did I tell you? I met him. I talked to him at the Fiesta Bowl before the Clemson Ohio State game. It was like at media days and just kind of lingering around. And this is before he was kind of mentioned for some head coaching jobs. And I remember talking to him, and it was only 5 minutes, and he might have been pulling a Shane Beamer and just like, hey, and like this guy's on the radio, might say nice things about me, but he really was impressive in just a 5-minute conversation. The energy was positive, high energy. The vision was there. In fact, I don't know if was the Boston College. I don't know if he had taken it yet.
I think he had taken it, but he had
so
decided
that
to
maybe
stick
that
with
was what
the
it was. Maybe
Buckeyes.
the ACC guy. Maybe he was just playing me. Maybe he was sucking up to me. But it was impressive. I do remember talking to him, and I think he would blow it away in interviews too.
Coming up on the other side, we take a dive into the big old bag of mail, including with all the success that Georgia's had both this season and over the last couple of years under Kirby Smart. What does the future look like? We'll get into that and more next. Guys, if you're looking for ways to skip the trip to the post office and dodge all of that hectic holiday shopping traffic, well, why not save time and money with Stamps.com? Stamps.com lets you compare rates, print labels, and access exclusive discounts on UPS and USPS services all year long, not just the holidays. I mean, it makes sense, especially if your business sends more mail and packages during the holidays. We'll be taking our Christmas cards soon. Got to be getting the postage for it. Stamps.com will be right there for my family, yours, and also your business. So whether you're selling online or running an office or a side hustle, Stamps.com can help you save so much time, money, and stress during the holidays. You can access all the post office and UPS shipping services that you need without taking that trip and get discounts that you're not going to find anywhere else, like 40% off USPS rates and 76% off UPS. Going to the post office instead of Stamps.com is kind of like taking the stairs instead of the elevator. You're just going up a couple of floors? Sure, take the stairs. But if you're walking 30 flights a day, you could use the brakes. So take that elevator that is Stamps.com. Save time and money this holiday season with Stamps.com. And if you sign up with the promo code COVER3, you get a special offer that includes a 4-week trial, free postage, and a digital scale. No long-term commitments, no long-term contracts. Just go to Stamps.com, click the microphone at the top of the page, and enter the code COVER3. Again, go to Stamps.com, look for the microphone at the top of the page, and enter the promo code COVER3 for a special offer that includes a 4-week trial, free postage, and a digital scale. Stamps.com, promo code COVER3.
So, Chip, related to that ad read, literally today, I dropped my son off at preschool and went to go mail my dad his birthday card. And I realized I didn't have my mask. So I had to go back to my house to get a mask so I could go back to the post office to get a stamp to mail the card. And if I just had stamps, I mean, just, yeah.
Stamps.com promo code COVER3. Like you don't have to worry about grabbing your mask to go to the post office because you're getting it all done at home. A great example of ways that this Stamps.com can come out and help you.
Do we want another fun mask story that has nothing to do with stamps?
Yeah, sure.
I have a dentist appointment a few weeks ago. There's no parking near the joint. Like it's in the middle of Chicago. It's in Lincoln Park. There's no parking. So I finally find a parking spot probably about 2.5-3 blocks away. So I park the car, I get there, I walk to the dentist's office, and as I get to the door and there's a sign on there that says, you must wear your mask, I realize I forgot my mask in the car. So then I've got to walk all the way back to the car, get the mask, come all the way back, put the mask on, go in, sit down in a chair and take off the mask so they can work in my mouth.
Yeah.
And get in your mouth. Like that's one of those ones where it's like, really?
Hey, Danny, I know you had your first dentist visit in a while recently. Are we regular now? Are you going every 6 months, every 12 months? Are we on the schedule?
No.
Okay.
I'll be back when I get pain. That's kind of where I go. Like if I get a toothache, I'll go back. Hopefully it's not for another 5 years.
Danny's not about that preventive maintenance.
I brush 3 times a day, floss. I do all the right things. And she was
3?
actually very complimentary. She said, because I was like, man, I was warning her. I'm like, this is going to be ugly. You know, this could get really bad for you. Hopefully I don't have like a dozen cavities. And she was very complimentary. She said, oh, you can hardly tell. She said, great. I only had one little cavity. She said, optional to come back. I was like, that's all I needed to hear. Optional, I'm out.
I missed this. Did your wife make you go to the dentist, or you have
No, she didn't. I actually did it out of like concern. It's been 5 years. I was like, let me just go get things checked up. My neighbor, they have 2 little boys. They're like 12 and 10. And they were like, hey, it's not that scary. You can go try. And so they had somebody that they really recommended. So I went and gave it a shot. So at least now I have somebody that I kind of like. So that's the good news.
Danny got shamed by preteens.
Truly made great strides. Yeah.
Oh, I had a good kind of one up on my wife. So she says, you need to go get your eyes checked. Like, when's the last time you had your eyes checked? I was like, I don't know, 6 or 7 years, probably. 2020, 2015.
Wow.
Boom. I was like, babe, I told you I'm good. I didn't need to waste my time going over here this morning. I didn't actually tell her that. Just like, I don't know what happened. That's crazy. So.
Impressive. These eyes that have had glasses since kindergarten could never. All right, let's dive into the big old bag of mail. This first question from the Hack Hall 48. Hey guys, longtime follower, RIP Barton. Obviously, with this being a Georgia Bulldogs podcast, y'all might be biased. However, I was curious about y'all's take on this. I'm an Arkansas fan and have been living through now what feels like generations of Alabama dominance. Despite not believing the Bama dynasty is over, I can't help but wonder if Georgia is finally becoming the next great dynasty. I had hoped if and when Saban slowed down or retired, the SEC would become anyone's race. But again, Georgia looks so good this year despite not having utterly dominant offensive play, especially at quarterback. I can't help but notice they look similar to early Saban-era Alabama right now. Do y'all expect Georgia to maintain this for multiple seasons / decade or so? Or do you think this is a magical season that will be remembered fondly when they're searching for a coach in a few seasons? Auburn, LSU, etc. 5 stars, guys. Great stuff.
Well, so I would say that Georgia has already been maintaining roughly this level of play for a while. They've just avoided the slip up so far this year. This year, it's also convenient for them that while they don't have great quarterback play, nobody else does either. So it's very much like a 2008, 2006 type year where Alabama would win, and it's like, okay, they stomped out somebody in the national championship who really wasn't very good. That's assuming that they actually do finish this thing out. If in this era, though, of higher point scoring, if Georgia wants to do what Alabama did, it is going to have to get quarterback right much more often than it has previously. Overall, talent recruiting wise, it is absolutely nuts right now. So FSU is likely to pick up 4-star defensive lineman who some services have as a top 100 player in the country, Tyree West, because Georgia needs the room in their class. Like, that's the level of picky that Georgia's being right now. And Mike Norvell's like, absolutely, baby. We are not picky about top 100 defensive linemen. Like, that's what we need down here. But if Georgia gets quarterback right consistently, they can go on a run similar to what Alabama went on. It's just that's much harder to do than it is to say.
Did Georgia get quarterback wrong with Aaron Murray?
I think he was a good college quarterback. I don't think he had like exceptional NFL type tools, right? I mean, he wasn't like a super high draft. Like physically, did he blow you away?
No.
I mean, complimentary guy, very accurate.
But I mean, he's the SEC passing touchdowns leader, SEC career passing touchdowns leader. With the clip, I think we had hit the 8-year anniversary of the prayer Jordan Hare was on, and you just go to like Aaron Murray's face, just so disappointed on the sideline. And that 2013 season,
he slammed the helmet. He was pissed.
That 2013 season was 1 year after they'd come 4 yards short of beating Alabama in the SEC championship game. I mean, I thought this week, I was like, man, Aaron Murray is Georgia football. Like, so good. All of the accolades, like right there, just doesn't have that national championship.
If he's the best quarterback you've had, though, in a run, that's not a national dynasty type run. If he's one of your better guys, I can buy that.
I mean, I think as far as like the question of if this is what to expect, I mean, I don't know if you're trying to frame it as will they be the next Alabama? No, I don't think there's going to be another Alabama, because once the playoff expands, it's just going to become a lot more difficult to win national titles. And a lot of Alabama's national titles were in the BCS era when it was just, one game. But I think it can be in the sense that it's going to be a playoff team nearly year in and year out once it expands. Yes.
Especially at 12. Like, you're just going to expect to see Georgia every year. I mean, you're probably going to expect to see Notre Dame every year.
Yeah.
Barring a salary cap or some sort of cap on the number of 4 and 5 stars you can have, they're going to be at the top as long as Kirby Smart's there, and probably as long as anybody's there. They have the resources to supply what they need to supply to get those recruits in there. I think it is like, if you went back and looked at my Twitter timeline and my criticism of Alabama in 2009, 2010, 2011, it's very similar to what it is now of Georgia. And then, like, the hatred I get in return is very similar to what it was at Alabama. And once they found, Lane Kiffin, and once they found a Tua Tagovailoa and a Mac Jones, I got out of the way of that freight train and said, this is the best team in the country, hands down. Don't even try to fade them. Last year, Alabama, like, that's a scary thought if they do hit on a quarterback or they do get a couple of them in a row. And I think you say the same thing about Clemson, Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence. Like, that's how all of a sudden you get on a run. Maybe Kirby Smart has built the formula, because I think Nick Saban is one of the few that has won with just a guy at quarterback, right? There haven't been many, especially in the last 20 years. Maybe Kirby Smart can join that club, and clearly he's built Alabama East. I just still think that could be problematic for Georgia at some point, even this season, when they do face a team that can put up some points on you. Like, I still think there are limitations. Maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe there isn't another quarterback out there that's proven himself that can, put up points on this defense, and they can win with that defense, and a game manager. And Stetson Bennett he's just a guy plus, right? He is. I mean, maybe he's good enough. He's got the moxie. He can run around. He makes pretty good throws.
Football.
Yeah. Maybe it's enough, but I look at it, and that's my hesitation to just really going all in with this team is unbeatable and they're in a stratosphere all their own. Their schedule has been lighter, and they haven't had to see that element. And like, I do think it's a scary thought for everybody else, including Alabama, if they get quarterback and offense in general figured out. Because I keep going back to, man, the narrative when Todd Monken was hired and the pairing of JT Daniels and what we saw the last 4 or 5 games of last season was, whew, they have arrived. This is a 2021. This is they're going to start throwing it for 350 yards a game. They're going to open things up, and JT Daniels is a Heisman Trophy candidate. We still haven't seen that. They've gone kind of back to, let's run the football, play action pass, let's kind of play that ball control. We'll rely on this defense. And that's worked great, and maybe it does. I just think it's a valid criticism of this team that we don't know for sure what they can do against a team that can put up some points against their defense.
I also wonder, too, like, when the playoff expands, how will that impact certain coaches that you would think would be safe? Because, like, let's use Georgia for the example. Like, Georgia is a team that in the Kirby Smart era has recruited really well. It's gotten to the playoff once. It came within an overtime of winning a national title. It's been really close. But once the playoff expands to like 12 teams, if Georgia's going to the playoff every year, Kirby Smart's continuing to recruit, they're getting there, but they're not winning the national title. How long until he gets fired because he's not winning the national title? Because it's going to be, because like, that's what's going to happen to like a lot of these fan bases. It's going to be like, it's going to be like, we've been to the playoff 5 years in a row. We haven't won yet. We got to get a coach that knows how to win. That's what's going to happen.
Mark Richt had 14 years. And Kirby got
Mark
there.
Richt wasn't in the playoff every year.
But it
was a different era.
BCS era.
Yeah, exactly. There were only 2 teams that were going to win national titles. In the playoff era, when there's going to be 12, fan bases are going to become a lot. This is my prediction. I think fan bases are going to become a lot less forgiving of coaches who are good enough to get you to the playoff, but damn it, we haven't won yet, so we need to get a winner in here.
I think
You don't think it's the other way?
No, I think it's just going to lead to more turnover.
I think it'll take a while, because some fans will still be able to just stick on, like, what was your record? That'll still be like the simple, like, 9-3, 10-2, 11-1. Like I think that if you turn in double-digit win seasons, make the playoffs, then whatever happens in the playoffs, I think it'll take some time. It'll take a lot of playoff failures for that to be your reputation to a point where you lose your job.
Practically, like, what is the real difference between, missing the current 4-team playoff and, limping into the new 12-team playoff and then getting bounced, right? Like, you'd probably get fired if you missed the playoff enough times in the current format at Georgia. I don't think it's crazy to think that, any of these super elite programs might get tired of somebody having, if this happened, having embarrassing playoff performances. It's very similar to just actually missing the playoff,
Okay, well, maybe George is the wrong example then. But I do think that for other programs who will suddenly become playoff contenders who aren't realistic playoff contenders now, I think that the expanded playoff is just in general going to lead to much more coaching turnover.
I like that, because everyone says that in general now coaches don't get the time that they got. Like Dabo has said that if he was coming up and having those kind of seasons in 2010, that now if he had that same season in 2020, he probably gets fired. Doesn't even get the opportunity to have that slow ramp up, that 2010, 2011, all the way to 2015 era where things really start to build and take off. So I can understand how the playoff would add another bit. It's not necessarily Georgia, but it's teams that want to take the next step. Their coaches might get clipped as they continue to bump their heads on the ceiling of trying to get over the hump.
This is like way too long of a discussion for today's show, but like sometime in the offseason, we need to start talking to some ADs about, like, how do you evaluate coaches beyond, just win-loss record? Like if you're Michigan, you didn't fire Harbaugh last year because you saw the underlying metrics said they were actually fairly good but unlucky. Nebraska, kind of the same thing this year, right?
Do you think I don't think they look at underlying metrics. I think we do when we judge them. I think it's more.
They're making $20 million decisions, and like the salaries are only going up. They need. I wonder who is.
I would hope they are.
Well, yeah. I think you're a leader of a business. It's an interpersonal organizational situation where you're doing interviews and you're having conversations, and you as a leader have to make that decision. I mean, sure, like all metrics and all numbers and all key performance indicators, KPIs, will let you know what the type of decision that you want is. But I think that it is much more about what you are able to gather from conversations and information gathering within the program.
You know what I would like to see? More teams do what happened at Michigan and what happened in Nebraska. Now, we talked about Miami. Maybe Manny Diaz is a candidate. It's hard without an athletic director. Who's going to go to him, though, and say, hey, you know what? Thinking about making a change. Let's rework this deal and make it a little bit more friendly for us. Let's maybe more incentive based. Let's lower that buyout if you want to be here for the longer time, or we'll go ahead and make a move. Like, I think more athletic directors should start to wield their leverage when they have it, as opposed to the only one-sided way it's worked for the past 20 years.
100% agreement. But there's one thing we got to keep in mind, though, with the two places that have done it, both of those coaches are alumni. Both of those, like Harbaugh played for Michigan, Frost played for Nebraska.
He's a Miami guy,
I know. I'm saying more AD should definitely try it. And I think, honestly, more coaches should be, if you really give a damn about the job that you have, you should be more open to maybe considering it. But I think a lot of coaches will be like, I'll just go work somewhere else. That's fine. I'm not taking a pay cut. I can go get somewhere else.
So we had a ton of NC State questions this week. They came in through DMs to Tom. They came in the actual mailbag. They are being peppered from all over the place. So this one sort of encapsulates a lot of the NC State conversation, and I want to make sure we get this in here so that all of you can be able to hear it. All the people who ask questions. Guys, I absolutely love the show and listen every week. I started listening at the start of COVID lockdown as an escape from all the bad news. I love the mix of personalities, unbiased analysis, except Danny LOL, laughs, and all the occasional passionate argument. Keep up the good work. So about NC State, there's been a feeling among some of the fan base that we've missed our breakthrough window. This was supposed to be Dave Doran's best roster. It probably has less top-end talent than the 2017 team with its 11 draft picks, including Bradley Chubb, Nyheim Hines, etc., but better quality depth. After several close calls under Doran, we finally got over the hump against an admittedly subpar Clemson. But hey, we finally slayed the Tigers. We lost in Starkville against a solid Bulldog team, but that was our first true road test in front of a real crowd in 2 years and a non-conference game at that. Then we stubbed our toe against a mediocre Miami team. Then last Saturday night, despite having our Atlantic Division destiny in our control, we lost to Wake Forest. Yes, this is a very good Wake team, and we've lost several key starters to injury, but the season now seems like a missed opportunity. Our last ACC football championship was in 1979. Per Joe Giglio, we remain one of only 4 Power 5 programs to never win or tie for a division title since 2000, the others being Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and Indiana. Absent a miracle, it leaves us with another solid but unexceptional 7-9 win under Dave Doran. Yet this is another season with no division or conference title in a wide-open 2021 ACC that won't stay that way for long. I think the typical NC State fan is happy with 7 to 8 win seasons and putting a few guys in the league, so long as we win our share against UNC and have the very occasional shot at a division title when the opportunity presents itself. What should NC State fans think about this? Should we be happy to be an above-average Power 5 program, or should we be disappointed that we likely missed our chance to break through this year? Thanks again, and go Pack, Jonathan.
Well, NC State boys.
I mean, look, I was very high on this team coming into this year. I think you can be both. You can be disappointed that you didn't take advantage of this window because you didn't, right? You should have beaten Miami. You should have probably beaten Mississippi State, and you didn't. You know, you have a lot of talent, especially on offense. You don't seem to score quite as many points as that talent suggests you probably should. Also, those team names that you read off, Kentucky, Indiana, Vanderbilt, what's the common thread here? They all play in divisions where you have several programs who are, better than you historically and currently. Problem here is it's very easy to look at this year and say, damn, like Clemson was down, Florida State was down, and we lost this damn division to Wake? Really? Like that? Yeah, that does suck. I don't like to be the guy that's like, hey, you guys shouldn't have expectations, of greatness once in a while. I think it's kind of crazy to think NC State should compete regularly for the division, but I'm sure it's a bummer for their fans that they have not actually, gone and finished the thing at least one time.
Do you guys know how many double-digit win years they've had? Like
0,
the last
right?
51. You know the quarterback was? Phillip Rivers.
Phillip Rivers.
Like, barring some generational type quarterback that you get, that's probably the reality of where you are. Like 8 and 9 wins every year. Maybe you catch magic and get 10, get an ACC championship. And I hate saying but barring a big, massive shift, again, like you're talking about salary cap or some sort of cap on 4 and 5 stars, and then all of a sudden you get to it's things that aren't likely to happen. I'll say this. I think the perception of your program is better than it is at Kentucky, Vanderbilt, and those other teams, Indiana. I think that's good. And I think you're more consistent. Their down years, I think, are worse than your down years. So I don't know. Even if you tried to go out and swing for the fences of a head coach, I think Dave Doran's doing a great job there. But I think what you are is kind of what you are. And I hate to even say that because you don't want people to just be complacent. I got a buddy of mine who went to NC State, and he always texts me during games. And, I just think it's kind of what you are. Maybe you get capture magic again and you get to 11. I just don't know if it's going to happen.
I mean, if there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, it's that maybe next time you do have that season where you get to 10 or 11 wins, you find yourself with an at-large berth.
Oh, an expanded playoff totally changes it. Don't
Sure.
Yeah.
Don't take this program for which I think, 7 to 9 wins, but also that NFL, the NFL draft number speaks right to player development, speaks to the program that you've got and the way that it is changing the way that players have from a physical standpoint and also from a skill standpoint. You are teaching the game. You are developing players into pros. Don't bail on that when being able to be the second best team in the ACC Atlantic might be good enough to make it into the new college football playoff. I also totally understand the hurt because that game against Wake, the Instant Reaction podcast is very tough on us when it comes to all of the 7 and 8 o'clock games. It's just,
Mhm.
it's really tough to be watching all of it and also process information as we sit here and the lights go on. I got all of the first half. I didn't get much of the second half. I reviewed that game, and it was the old, I mean, it was the old drill, or the old like basketball. For me, I think of it as a basketball drill. I'm sure it's a football drill too, but you've all got numbers on each side and the ball's in the middle, and we call threes, and the threes from each side are just going to sprint to the ball and try to see who can get possession. And the division was right there. Like NC State and Wake Forest were standing on opposite lines. They called the number and they both were scrapping for it, and Wake came out on top. And if you're an NC State fan, having already come up with all of these answers, we lose our All-American linebacker. We lose the team captain who stepped in after him. We had the loss that we thought derailed our season. Then we didn't derail our season. Like, you have had an emotional journey, and then to feel like you just got out scrapped, and to be very, very basic, by Wake. I mean, you just think about like an NC State fan, right? You're like, wait, we got out scrapped and out fought by Wake. I understand why that's why there's so much hurt right now. But in terms of your expectations, I think that Tom brings up a great point. Being what you are might be good enough for the national kind of recognition that you'd be looking for that could come with that division title or that national championship. It's one of the reasons why we want to expand the playoff, is to keep those 30 to 35 programs interested all the way until the end of the season. One more ACC corner question. All right. Let's see. Here we go. This is from Guam Hokie. A Hokie in Guam. Okay. Thanks for listening.
Big Virginia Tech fan base there.
The Cover 3 gang are both entertaining and insightful. As an ACC fan, what is the overall problem with the conference in terms of perception and actual competitiveness from top to bottom? For the last decade, either Florida State or Clemson has dominated and won national championships. However, the perception of the conference as a whole is negative. What needs to be done? How can those schools recruit better? Is the national perception shaped by the relatively low attendance at many of the schools?
Well, I mean, there's a couple issues, right? The TV contract is a real problem for them, and it's only going to continue to become a greater problem. So a lot of these schools don't have the same amount of athletic funds that the SEC does. And I bring up the SEC because that is the conference that has an overlapping geographic footprint with the ACC. When they're right, FSU and Clemson recruit on a similar level to the best SEC schools, with the exception of generally Bama. Although Georgia's now kind of pushing into that territory. However, like, your second tier and third tier schools are not competitive on the recruiting trail with the second tier SEC schools. Like, Virginia Tech does not compete with Auburn on the recruiting trail, nor does NC State. So you have a smaller group of schools at the top who can really carry the water for the conference, right? So you kind of need at least two of Clemson, FSU, and Miami to be good. Miami has never fulfilled that bargain since entering the league. FSU is more recently down for like 4 years in a row. Clemson has one off year, and then the league gets basically disregarded. But the bottom tier of teams do not have the same amount of recruited talent and athleticism as their nearest conference that they compete against for eyeballs and for fan interest. It's a talent issue and a money issue. Like, they're just not going to be respected for an overall conference quality standpoint, nor should they be. So they have to rely on a team being super elite at the top to kind of mask the other issues, which is what they've done for most of the last decade or so, except this year Clemson's down and FSU's not up.
I think the ACC and the Pac-12 are very similar. And now we're kind of finding out, because Pac-12 hasn't had that USC, that Oregon. Maybe this year it is. But ACC's had Clemson. I know a lot of people have said, oh, well, if the ACC didn't have Clemson, look how bad it would be. And now here we are. I do think this is a perception problem that has been the result of sort of a 20-year process of, I don't want to say poor leadership, but a leadership that doesn't take it as personally as what you've seen with Mike Slive and Greg Sankey in the SEC. This is a conference which prides itself, and really maybe it started with the SEC championship game, but they prided itself on saying we're the best, and they kind of made it their thing. Like when I was coming into college, when I played in college football, no one cared about your conference. Not even the SEC, I don't think. It was, and we've kind of talked about this a little bit, how they made a conscious decision to let's stop airing out our dirty laundry. Let's stop telling on each other. Let's handle it in-house. And that was kind of the beginning of this. And then it becomes, then you get everybody on the same page with one narrative, which has been, we're the best. We're head and shoulders above the best. You hear any coach who takes a job in the SEC, it's like he gets this pamphlet of information. These are your talking points. This is the toughest league to win in. This is the toughest start to finish schedule that you'll have. And, most NFL talent, they get their talking points and they stick to them. They hammer it in. Bud makes a great point about the TV contract. Not only is it not a great contract, but it's embarrassing when you have a top 25 matchup, which we had last week with Wake and NC State, and it's on the ACC network. Like, if that happened at the SEC without it being a plan, let's try to get eyeballs on the SEC network, which maybe they did early season, but this is November. This is time when the playoffs are coming and you need eyeballs on you. I guarantee you, Greg Sankey or previously Mike Slab would have been on the phone saying, are you kidding me? You're going to have two of our top 25 teams buried on our conference channel. This needs to be in prime time on the biggest stage out there. The fact that the ACC network's headquarters are in Bristol because the SEC didn't want competition in Charlotte, which is right in the footprint of the ACC. And the ACC said, okay, sure, we're okay with that. Like, no, they should not have been okay with that. Like, there's a laundry list of little things that creep in. And to me, it just tells me that there's a lot of people that are just kind of happy collecting checks. We're okay. As long as we have Clemson, as long as we have one team in the conversation, like, it's okay. But that to me is why you are here, because the talent issue, it wasn't that, like, probably 5 or 6 years ago. Now, this was when Florida State was rolling and Clemson was kind of coming up, but Louisville also had NFL talent. Those numbers that the SEC love to reference of we have the most players drafted every single year, the ACC was not that far behind. I'm talking like 5 players. It was 5 players a year, but yet they had that and they promoted it and they owned that. We have the most NFL talent in the league. And I used to get frustrated and be like, oh, because you have 5 more 6th round, 7th round picks, it makes you that much better. But they stuck to it. They promote it. They use it in recruiting. And then they've been able to separate more and more and more. There's a laundry list of issues why the ACC is where they are now. And similar to the Pac-12, I don't know, do the fans care that much? Like, the Wake fans get that fired up? And it's great to hear from NC State fans. Pitt fans are kind of new. Syracuse fans, do they get fired up when people criticize the ACC, or are they like,
Well, there's no conference.
There's not that tribalism. Yeah.
Right. And they say, like, I would never root for someone else in the ACC. I don't have any desire to see these other teams go out and win, even when they're not playing us. And I'm not going to beat my chest and do the conference chant and hope that they win. I hope that they all lose. I hope you all lose, and I hope you all have a horrible time. And,
we're getting that this year.
Yeah,
so congrats.
But, like, to your point, Danny, the ACC ceiling, I think, is higher than the Pac-12's, because the ACC ceiling to me is the 2016-17 season. Clemson wins the national championship. Lamar Jackson wins the Heisman Trophy, and the conference as a whole goes 9-3 in its bowl games, sending double-digit teams to the postseason and also winning. That next football kickoff and that next football season, you could see that maybe there was a chance for the perception to really push through. And then 2 years later, Clemson wins again, does it to Alabama, like, in a big way. But it is fleeting because the SEC won national championships year after year after year after year. So I think the ACC ceiling is higher than the Pac-12's, but it's got a numbers issue. You mentioned the TV contract, and I think that these other things are tied to it. It's an alumni issue. It's an enrollment issue. It's a stadium issue, because let's bring the Big Ten into this. The Big Ten is valuable because we see 80, 90, 100,000 seat stadiums filled. We've got like some 40K, 50K, 30K stadiums in the ACC that aren't filled. And so in terms of the investment, in terms of the product as you're trying to sell, I do think that across the board, while there are 14 and a half teams in the conference, the numbers of potential customers in terms of the alumni and the fans is just so much less.
So
Can I say
one
more
thing I
thing
want
quickly? I got
Yeah,
it
Danny.
bold. I just want to get one more thing in. The other thing the SEC has going for it, they do not like getting criticism from talking heads. And I've seen this and talked to other analysts firsthand. You come down a little bit too hard on a team, on a coach, hot seat. Hey, this team isn't you make some certain statements, you're going to get a phone call. Like you may not have a job for that long. And that's the type of weight they've held the entirety. I would absolutely have the SEC network. And I kind of went to ESPN on the cusp of that. So, but I'm sure it came before that. Hey, that guy went a little bit too hard on us. And like, if I go out on ESPN or ABC primetime and say, man, the ACC is garbage, not a peep. Like they just have a lot of weight that they throw around because they can.
Danny, go back and watch halftime of Florida Stanford. What did they talk about? Not like, hey, Dan Mullen just had to fire coordinators. Could he be on the hot seat? They talked about the toughness of Emory Jones's running during that halftime on the SEC network.
Yep.
If you guys have it DVR'd, go back at home and find it. It's
a very there's a messaging that comes. Let's keep it positive. Let's keep it positive. Let's keep it positive. And let's portray the conference the best way we can.
The trend that set this off, by the way, was Nick at LSU in the early 2000s because the SEC always had more money than the ACC in many cases due to alumni and donors and stuff, not necessarily TV contracts, for a super long time. But Nick showed them other ways to spend the money. And I don't mean cheating ways, but like, hey, I can, put this amount of money into strength conditioning. I can put this amount of money into support staff and bringing on higher priced coaches and more of them and just more people. And like, he's a resource maximizer, right? And other schools, I think, saw that model and said, hey, we do have all this money that we don't really need to spend or haven't been spending. We can go ahead and spend it and we can raise more of it. They kind of have a gear they can shift into that a lot of the ACC programs either don't or won't in some cases. I think some of these programs do have huge athletic endowments that they probably don't want to tap into quite that much because maybe they don't want to be that level of competitive, you know what I mean?
Sorry, Tom, did you get cut off?
No, I was just going to ask. I mean, going back to the points Danny was talking about, like it's probably too soon to really have a definitive answer, but have you noticed, the three of you noticed any changes now that Jim Phillips is in charge, or at least things going in a different direction?
There's not much you can do about the TV deal that's all the way out to 2036. So other than,
but I mean, as far as the not antipathy, but just the overall lack of like football, have we seen like a mindset change with a guy coming from the Big Ten?
He has been very on the forefront, and so has the new Pac-12 commissioner George Kliavkoff. They have both said we understand what needs to happen in this conference and where the success needs to be for us to be healthy financially. They've addressed
why it doesn't change. Wow. Like, and I feel bad because I don't. What is the blue? Like, this would take a decade or more, and maybe it's just an impossibility to try to garner the passion and the generational love that is religion in the SEC. You can't replicate that. You can try. I would be doing everything I could to try to promote football and to promote fandom and to promote tailgating and to promote atmosphere of the game day. I don't know how you do it. I mean, I think you come up with some great plans, and I would try to be doing everything I could to do that. But you can't. You just can't replicate it. And that's the one thing. Like, I give the SEC a hard time, but you go to a game in the SEC, it's different. And I'm not talking about, if you go to Ohio State, you go to Michigan, or you go to Clemson or Florida State, like the top tier teams at programs around the country. Go to Kentucky, Mississippi State when they're both fighting for a bowl game. It's passionate atmosphere, crowded. They're going to cheer. And go to a Wake Forest, NC State game that doesn't have a lot in the line, and it's half full, and it's like nobody cares.
Let me stand up for Wake State. They have some hate for the big golden pig cooker.
There you go. All right, so maybe they do.
No, but to your point, also one last thing, because I know, Danny, you've got to run. We should probably wrap this up. But ACC is a transient conference. We don't have a generation of NC State fans who hate Syracuse. We don't have a generation of Pitt fans who have it like the hatred for UNC. Pat Narduzzi might hate UNC, but Pitt fans as a whole. So it will only take time and continuing to try to hit that ceiling as often as possible to be able to really build in that passion that the SEC is able to capitalize on.
Well, Chip,
it's not drivable.
Yeah. Chip, do you worry at all about an Illinois grad taking over the ACC and sabotaging North Carolina from the inside?
Illinois grad would that be Jim Phillips?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It's
Man.
ever since he left Northwestern, like I kind of think he might have the golden touch. You can follow. We will be back 11 a.m. Cover 3 Locks Live for Week 12. You can follow him on Twitter at Bud Elliott 3. You can follow him at Danny Cannell. You can follow him at Tom Fernelli. You can follow me at Chip_Patterson. Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Condolences to Barton Simmons and the entire Simmons family for the loss of your matriarch.
Yeah, 100%.
Send her love, buddy.